Well, so to dive into this thing, I really wanted everybody to sort of understand the fundamentals of this process. And I know a lot of you have been through this sort of situation before. You've heard about this process, but this is quite critical to go through the details, just so everybody can understand exactly how this process works. And hey, so some of the actual processes of what we do with this farming strategy has shifted a little bit, just with the way that things are today. Fundamentally, when we started doing this process, I mean, I'll be honest, we've been doing this for nearly 20 years. So it's been a long time in the, in the process. It was fundamentally around a door knocking strategy. But I also realized that door knocking is not for everybody. And unfortunately for me, ring doorbells kind of killed it for me, because I spent a lot of time talking to a doorbell rather than I was actually talking to people at the front door. So this whole process has been modified, where you can do it as a direct mailer, you can do it as a drop at the front door. Find a way to make this thing work. I know we've got a few on here that still door knock it and get a lot of incredible results. With the understanding that everything we're doing is designed to get you face-to-face with people. That's the whole goal around what we do, get you in front of people that are thinking about doing stuff, and it'll really help you go through it. So the first thing I want to talk about is farming is not about going to an area where you just like to sell houses. Biggest mistake I see realtors make is we dive into farming because there's pretty houses in an area and we think that's where we'd like to sell homes. The research project behind this is the most critical part. Choosing a farm has to work for you economically. Now, it's not about places where you'd like to sell houses. It's a place where you can sell houses. So if you haven't done it, the best recommendation I can give you is please go do the research project first. Make sure you go through and understand exactly what the farm area has. This is where you're going to want to use your relationships with a title company. They can generally get you a lot of the information you need with turnover results, stats, things like that. One little thing I would like to mention, though, is historically, I've always said, go back and have a look at the last year, have a look at what the turnover is, and base your research on that. Well, that's not very accurate at the moment based on the last 4 or 5 years of this industry with real fast turnover, obviously with not a lot of people moving, just with low interest rates and a bit of a funk in the market. And so if you really want to dive in and understand, I would say go back to a bit more of a normal market. Go and have a look at what the historical turnover was in 2017, 2018, 2019, before it started to get a little funky. So stretch it out a little bit. I want you to have a look at what seasonality looks like as well. When I say seasonality, there's a lot of areas where there's certain parts of the times of the year where a lot of homes sell and other times where they don't. So the more research you do, the better strike rates you're going to get when you roll this process out. Being dead honest with you, my 2 farm areas were not places that I'd ever want to live, but they had really, really high turnover. So I'm looking for an economic base in my business. And when I say an economic base, a place that can support me doing what I'm doing. I've seen a couple of situations where realtors have come to me, said, look, I've found a really great farm area. We do a lot of research on it to discover there's only 5 or 6 homes that sort of transact during the year, or it's a gated community that they don't live in. So getting access to that community is going to be a little bit tough. Look for turnover, look for demographic. And when I say demographic, something that fits you, something that sort of fits your sort of demographic of people. Mine was a sort of second, third home buyer area because, they had young families, same as what I was. So there was a little bit of a similarity. So it just made it a little bit more comforting for me to go do it. Have a look at all those things. Go through the research project. I say research a couple of different areas. Maybe you get a couple of different price ranges. I also like a diversity in price. My area, the low end was probably in the 200, 250 bracket. High end was in the 600, 700 bracket. So that if the certain phases of the markets were starting to shift, I still had areas that were moving. And I think everybody's kind of seen this before, where all of a sudden you'll have a really hot spot with anything under 400, and then nothing in that area moves, and then all of a sudden everything in the 600. So understand, farming is about an economic strategy to give you a place to go and operate every day that's going to give you opportunities to get in front of people that are thinking of selling. I can't stress the thinking of selling more than ever now, just given what's happened over the last couple of days with that lawsuit. We need to make sure that this is an integral part of your business for your own protection. You've got to make sure you've got listing strategies in your business. And I'm a big fan of getting in front of things. I don't think we're going to see an immediate impact on what's happened, but over the next year or 2, you will start to see some things change. And if you start doing the right things now, that'll have minimal to no impact on you. Sure, we're going to have to run our businesses a little different, but I'm probably one of the few people that's been through a situation like this. We had this happen years ago in Australia, and we just changed the way we did things, and all of a sudden we're back on track and making a lot of money. So don't stress about any of that sort of stuff outside of it. If you get this process right, it's going to be a real great platform for you in your business. I swear by it. It's the thing that kept me going through some of the toughest markets. So don't forget, research project, super critical. Make sure you go do it. I don't care how long it takes you, as long as you get it right. Don't just pick an area because you think it's pretty and you want to go sell homes there. look for turnover, understand where the market's at, understand exactly the things you need to know. Another great thing to probably consider is, industry that's happening. Is there anything being built? Is there new schools coming up? Is there a middle school, high schools, all those sort of things happening? Like, understand exactly what is the draw card to the area. If people are moving there for jobs or they're moving there for schools, there's another reason you'll see some turnover. So do the research. You'll thank me for it once you've done it. So farming in general has been a bit of a misleading thing, I think, right across the entirety of our industry. I think we've got a lot of people that sort of do blanket marketing, blanket dropping, monthly flyers. And the interesting thing about farming is it doesn't work if you're just out there marketing saying, hey, choose me if you're thinking about selling. We've got to create interest in some way, shape, or form as we go through this process. And so the process that I did is I needed to understand something that I could do on a regular basis, because going out and door knocking or doing a flyer drop to 1,000 homes today and then repeating it in a month or 2 months' time is never going to work, because people will never remember who you are. And for those that know me, you understand that marketing for me only works if you've got something to market. And if you don't have a ton of inventory, marketing list with me is really going to fall on a bit of deaf ears. So this whole process is designed around a nosy neighbor syndrome. Everybody's curious, everybody's nosy to know what's going on with their neighbors. And so I want you to be really clear and understand that this whole thing is designed around a target property. So we have a home that's on the market. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through all the steps, and then I'm going to show you and basically outline exactly how I ran it in my business. And your sort of goal from this is to understand or find a way to make this work for you. The other little sort of tidbit I'll give you is be very, very careful about the numbers of homes, because if you've got a farm area that you're choosing that has 2,000 homes in it, it's physically impossible to do it. It's too many homes. You can't get consistent with it. I think the ideal number is around about 500 properties. It gives you the ability to effectively do this daily. The first couple of months might take you a little bit more time as you start to get everything in line with all the status changes and everything that's happening. But once you get it in play, it's very simple to manage. And it works like this. So my very, very first step is whenever I listed a new property. Now, all the information that we're talking about is available in the program. So please, Katie will send you a link to show you exactly where to go. You can put it in the search feature. It'll pop up for you, show exactly where it is. This is the one thing. It's like I said, I want you to do the research on it. So my first step was this. And hey, we're all nosy people. We all want to know what our neighbors are doing. We're all curious about what's happening with the properties around us. And so I always found that if I went out door knocking, seeing if people were curious, I was asking for something from them. I wasn't sharing anything with them. I was just saying, hey, will you be interested in selling your home? Majority of people are going to say, no, go away. So what I discovered, if I was sharing information with them, it created curiosity. That's the whole fundamentals of our business. The more curious we can make people, the more questions they're going to ask us, and go figure, the more conversations we'll have that will lead to some results. And so my very first step was this. As soon as I listed a property, the very first thing that would happen before any sign went up. Now, I know this can't happen every time, so I'll give you the different variations. And so in a perfect world, if I listed a property today, the very first thing that would go out, and I would try to get it out today as well, is a letter to the neighbors. And we do the 10, 10, 20 is no mathematical genius number. It's basically 10 homes either side of the house that you're listing and 20 across the street. And that just works. Basically, we will generally know who those people are, whether we know them personally or it's visually, we just know who they are to see them as we walk down the street. And so I'd send out a letter that would say very, very simple things. I would actually door knock it. Later in my career, it was a little bit easier to send a direct mail to the home because I had all the database. I had everybody in my farm area. And so the first letter says this: hey, I just wanted to let you know that one of your neighbors has entrusted me to sell their property. With the marketing and promotion of this home, it's going to generate a lot of interest in the area. So if you had any questions about this property or anything to do with your own, feel free to reach out anytime. That's my first point of contact. I used to get a lot of phone calls from it, like who's selling? How much is it going on the market for? So you do get the nosy neighbor curiosity. The first one always generated quite a bit of interest for me. It was 10 times better if the letter went out before the sign went up. Let me repeat it. It was 10 times better if the letter went out before the sign went up, because what they don't know, they don't know. Now, if you put the sign up, then send the letter out, they already know which home it is. So it's probably going to be a little bit less in the connection. And funny enough for me, it was the very first checkbox on my listing process. The very first thing that happened as soon as I listed a home is that letter would go out. Understand, our philosophy is this: you list a property, your sole goal is to list more homes from that property. And if we can start marketing it effectively, do the things that we need to do, we're going to generate interest, and we're going to start building conversations with the neighbors to make sure that we're on the shopping list should they feel like they're going to do something. And there's been research done for years on this as well. And if you could get a Google map camera and take a photo of a home that's just come on the market, you'll know exactly what happens in a month or two. Another home comes on the market very, very close to it. Jolie, yes, all these the communications that we're talking about are in the program. So everything I'm going to talk to you about is in the program for you to take and download, do however you want to do with it. The one thing I will say is please be careful what you add to the communication. They're very specific. We're not adding anything in there with cheesy real estate scripts and things like that. We are going to go through a process. So we're not trying to get a one-hit wonder by sending a letter and hoping people are going to communicate with us. It's a process. If you go through it, trust me, watch what happens. So that's my very first one, notifying them that they've gone on the market. The next question that I always get, can I do this around other agents' properties? You 100% absolutely can. I got just as much response from doing it around other agents' listings as I ever did around mine. I'll reiterate one thing. You've got to be ethical, and you can never, ever indicate that that property is yours. So if I saw another listing come on the market, or maybe I saw it pop up in the MLS, I would send a very similar letter, but I would just say, instead of saying they entrusted me to sell it, I'd say one of your neighbors has decided to sell, and through the marketing of this property is going to generate some interest. So very, very similar. I just changed the first line. You will still get inquiries. But in most cases, that is going to go out once the sign's already gone up. It is another agent's listing. Hey, if you can maybe see before it happens, great. But in most cases, that would end up happening after the sign went up. Still works and still generates some interest. And here's where it works. From this moment onwards, the thing that I would do every single day with every property that was in my farm area, every morning I'd get a status change update sheet put in front of me. So my assistant would download a status change sheet, anything that's a new listing, anything that's had a price reduction, any status changes on any listings. And there's a process for every single one of these. And this is where I'm seeing people mess this process up, is they do the just listed, they do the one when it goes into escrow, and then they may do one a little bit later down the track before it closes. You're missing the most fundamental part of this. Is we need to notify people when there are changes happening with the property. And so theoretically, in this market, you might have to do the first one a couple of times. So if in 2 weeks' time, that property is still on the market, but there's been no changes, I send exactly the same letter. One of your neighbors has decided to sell, or one of your neighbors entrusted me to sell their home through the marketing, because you're still going to get inquiries. People saying, what's happening? Why hasn't it moved? These are the conversations we need to have. This is what's going to get people curious. They're going to know what's going on. However, then that happens every 2 weeks. You set it on a time clock every 2 weeks. If you do it, it's just about us staying top of mind. Don't freak out about people saying, hey, well, aren't they going to know that I sent them the same thing 2 weeks ago? We've been through this a million times. Nobody remembers what they did 2 weeks ago. It'll have some familiarity with it, but they're not going to sit there and go, you sent me the same bloody thing 2 weeks ago. And even if they do, it does not matter. You can say, that's right, I did, because we're still promoting it. We're getting a lot of people showing interest in the area. Hey, that home might not be for everybody, but people predominantly come to a home first because of where it's located. And this is why we're doing this process. And so now every time a status change happens, so in this market, you're going to see a lot of price reductions. So the next one that would go out, as soon as I saw a price reduction on another agent's property, or I price reduced the one on mine, I would send out the next step, which is, hey, just want to let you know we've had a significant marketing adjustment on the property we're selling. If it's somebody else's, you'll notice one of your neighbor's home has had a significant marketing adjustment on it. This is going to generate a lot more interest in the area and in this property. So if you had any questions, everything is in the program for you. That one for me was the really good one for generating some interesting conversations, because people go, why are they dropping the price? Why is it not selling? I thought it would have sold for that. Those conversations that you get from the neighbors are the light bulb going off in your head that those people are actually interested in doing something. Nobody's going to get that curious. And what this process will end up doing is it'll start filling your pipeline of people that are curious about what's happening in the market. It becomes your target focus on all the people that have a potential interest in doing something. And this was probably predominantly the thing that generated the majority of my future pipeline of leads. And actually, funny enough, I didn't share this at the beginning, but I was talking to Katie about this yesterday, and obviously doing some research on this and having a look at, understand the volume that I was doing in my business, 60 odd deals a month, 60% of that was coming from this strategy. So it's a significant part of the volume that I was doing in my business, but it was happening every day. It was systematic. It was foolproof. I did not adjust it in any way, and it happened in those timeframes. So the price adjustment will be my second one. And I'll keep doing that while they're getting price reduction. So if they do a price reduction this week and then they do another one next week, you betcha they're getting another one, notifying them what's going on. You'll also understand there's nothing in this communication that's asking for anything from them. All we're doing is sharing information. So if you've got any worries about, solicitation rules and things like that. We've been tried and tested on this many times. We are not soliciting anything from anybody. We're sharing information. Keep sharing the information. What happens? People start engaging with you and talking to you. Maybe the only people that'll be upset about it are the realtors that are sitting home on a Wednesday afternoon. So let them do their thing. So the next step for me is I'd keep doing the status changes. And then once the property went into escrow, that's when I would send my next one. And that basically is super simple. Hey, just want to let you know, great news. Your neighbor's property has gone into escrow. Still a few, and if it was mine, there's still a few things that we need to do to close it. But great result. And if if you had any questions about this home or you were considering doing something of your own, please feel free to reach out anytime. Now, I had a couple of extras that I put in there, but these ones are the ones that you can do. Then if it was my own listing, another one that I would do that was actually really good for the neighbors was a week before it would close. I'd send out a letter. And this one I would definitely send out, just letting them know, hey, your new neighbors are going to be moving in a week. And if you are interested in me introducing you to them, feel free to reach out anytime. Now, my entire career, not one person ever asked me to introduce them to, but I got a lot of people thanking me for that because it was something very different. They weren't doing the same thing. Then after it closed, a week after it closed, I'd send another one just saying, hey, recently just closed one of your neighbors' properties. We're still getting inquiries from people who are very interested in the area. So if you have any questions about what we achieved with that home, don't share the price. You want people to call you. So if you have any questions about what we achieved with that home, or curious to know what you could possibly do with yours in the future, feel free to reach out anytime. That one was another really, really great one that elevated that process. And then I would keep doing it for another couple of months. So I'd space them out a little bit more. And probably every 3 weeks, I'd send out another one, which is say, hey, just close one of your neighbors' properties. But we're still getting a lot of people inquiring about this neighborhood. So generally what I would end up getting is probably 6 to 8 communication points with the neighbors around every listing that I had and other agents' listings as well. And once I sort of got this process running, it was maybe 1 or 2 a day that I was doing at max with that sort of volume. And I would do this also around any property that wasn't in my farm area to a certain degree, especially if it was my listing. And it was the foundation of building my lead source. It was consistent. It worked all the time. It does go through some highs and lows, without a doubt. There's some highs and lows in it. You'll get some market parts where you don't get a lot of response from it. Then you'll get certain markets will take off. That's a little bit to be expected with the industry and the market that we have right now. But you got to trust me on this one. If you keep doing this one, it will be the absolute best foundation in your business. Because one thing that we're seeing without a doubt that's changing in the marketplace right now is people are doing a lot more research than they've done in the last 4 or 5 years. They're not just listing with the cheap and easy. They're doing a lot of research. They're interviewing 3 or 4 agents. So people are really out there doing it. I'm going to put a little side note here. If you're going to do this process, you want to make damn sure your pre-listing process is dialed in as well. So if you're going to really elevate the farming process and dive into this, please make sure that the pre-listing process that's in the program is dialed in, because you're going to get a lot of people making inquiries, and it's a really good idea to send your pre-listing kit to them even when they make an inquiry. Elevates who you are, shows a lot of credentials behind what you're doing. So please make sure you get that dialed in. Great personal profile, seller's guides, all the stuff that we've provided for you is going to be a significant way to really get some interest in getting yourself on the shopping list. Never forget, our job is to get you in front of people that want to sell. Your job is to get in front of them and close it by using the tools and the systems we give you. This is going to be one of those things that will open the doors. And as we start moving into the market of next year, and when things start to sort of slow down a little bit, when I say slow down, all the the sort of hyperactivity of what we've got going on in the mortgage world, and that starts to sort of balance itself out, you are going to see a lot more people inquiring about what they're doing. If you think in your head when you're doing this process, it's about filling my future pipeline, it's going to be a lot better for you. If all you're doing is trying to get someone that wants to sell today, that's going to be your biggest flaw in this process, because all you're going to do is try and get people to make a move today. If somebody says, hey, look, curious, but we're not really interested in doing anything for 6 months, get excited, because now all your job is to shorten the time frame. If you keep doing this communication, it's absolutely going to keep you on the shopping list. It's one of the few things in my entire life that I'd absolutely guarantee would work if you follow it to the letter. Done it with hundreds of agents, and it's always produced great results. Where it's produced the absolute best results. Now, if you've been in the business for a long time and you've just started, listen to this really carefully. Where it's produced the best results is with new agents, because they're not going in with that desperate mindset of trying to convert the people straight away. They're following the process systematically. And it was a reason we had so many brand new agents do great volume in their first year, because this was the one thing that they can go and do without having a database, without having a network of people. It gave them the ability to go build something. And where I see the weakness in more experienced agents is they leave pieces out because they just don't want to do it. It's too much communication. There is no such thing as too much communication. Because if somebody says, hey, go away and stop sending me your crap, they weren't going to do business with you anyway. So the part of this is breaking up with it, but also understand that the way that these are worded and the way that we're putting it together is non-offensive. It's not a cheesy real estate script. We're just sharing information, and that makes it a lot easier to do. So if you follow it, trust me, it'll work really, really well. So that process is super, super simple. But one of the things that I had was always a checklist. That was my number one thing. I used to put this process into my morning 90. It was the strategy that I went through every morning. First thing I did, check the status change list. Who's had a price reduction? What's going on with this? And then we'd pre-do it all. And then that all just get sent out that day. And the quicker they go out, the more effective they'll always be in your business. So please just make sure you focus on it. There's every single thing that you need to do this process is in the program. You can go download it, you can do it, you can email it, you can direct mail it. Something I will say though, and I don't know whether, I suppose I probably do know, but I mean, I'm curious about it, but door knocking has a certain, I don't know what you want to call it. It's got a certain sort of negativity to it at the moment. And I think with Ring doorbells, if you go out and door knock it, the issue that I've got with the door knocking at the moment is the amount of people you're going to see is minimal, and it doesn't get a lot of staying power. So if you only meet 2 people, it's only 2 people that see that. This pains me to say it because I'm not a big fan of spending a ton of money doing certain things, because I know doing things a little bit more manual is going to produce results, but we are getting the absolute best result by direct mailing this to the homeowner. And so one of the things I suggest, if you're going to direct mail it to somebody, don't brand your envelopes, don't put a big red flag on it that says it's from a realtor. I make it very, very simple, a very, very simple letter that I put in, making sure I address it to the homeowner. Do not put dear homeowner or neighbor, because that screams straight away it's just a marketing letter. I used to have them all pre-ready to go, and all I had to do was mail merge them with my database and send them out. So the more preparation you put into this, the easier it's going to be. So just please make sure that you do it. I've got Tyler on here. What are my thoughts about doing handwritten letters? Buddy, if you've got the time to do a handwritten letter, there is nothing better. But you also do need to remember one thing, and this is something that I always share with people, is like, we're all chasing volume. We want to be bigger and we want to be better and we want to do more transactions. There's a really smart tip that I want to teach with you. What you do today, you still need to be able to do it when you have the business that you want. So if you're going to start doing handwritten letters, and you know when you start having the business you need to have, that's going to be impossible to do, just understand that that might be something that really starts to filter out. I still think in this process, having them done as a professional letter, like actually printing it properly and hand signing it, is just as good. Maybe if there's something that pops up that was intriguing, maybe you had multiple offers on a property, Tyler, then a handwritten note to the neighbors saying, hey, just want to let you know I got multiple offers on the property. The sooner you do that, the better it is. So, hey, let's be honest, there's nothing better than a handwritten note. It means you put the effort in. But I know where your business is, Tyler. I know how quickly you're growing. That might be something that might be a struggle down the track once you start getting a lot of market share and potentially tons of listings as well. So, hey, probably a personal note would be, I would do it if I could in my own personal farm area, and the ones that were out of my area that I was running this process with, I probably would just do the pre-printed one. Understand speed in this, and getting it out there quickly is a really good way to do it. Robot companies that could create, templates. Well, all the templates are in the program, so you don't really need to do it. Hey, a professional letter is just as good. I mean, speed, efficiency, it's always going to make it work. But what I'd also say, I don't care what you try, as long as you keep consistent with the process. If you want to get them all pre-done and sent somewhere else, you need to track the results. And this is going to probably recreate a situation where you might want to think about changing some things. You do need to make sure you track it though. So if I'm sending out documentation, I'm sending out letters, and I'm not getting the inquiries, I'm having a look at the delivery method. Is it going right? Is it going out quick enough? What's happening with this thing? And then Tyler, you might decide you're going to do handwritten notes, and all of a sudden that's where all your inquiries are coming from. Then absolutely you're going to stick to it. So I'd say try it. If it doesn't give you any better results than doing the other way, then I say go back to the way that you can actually fit into your business effectively, because I really want to be done with all of this by 10 o'clock in the morning. You know what, the morning 90, that's why it's there, is to make sure that these growth activities are things you get done out of the way before before 10 o'clock, and then you move on with your day. Makes a big, big difference. So hey, I think handwritten notes for me when it comes to this would be a really good idea if you met a neighbor at the open home, because I'm going to share with you the most critical part of this. So you met a neighbor at an open home, doing a handwritten note and dropping it at their door saying, hey, it was really nice meeting, if they told you where they live. That would be another next step. That would be a really elevating the process. Maybe that's something else that you think about, is whenever you look at doing something like this, is there something else that I could add to it that's going to make it even better? I always swear by it. What's the next step? I don't think that we're ever going to get things perfectly right. And every time we look at something, there's always the ability for us to go a little step further and make it better. So yeah, hey, dive into it. Tyler, do you have a question? Got his hand raised? No? Cool. So this one at the moment, and I want to spend a little time on this, and please, if you have any questions about this one, this is the one that I want you to focus on more than anything. And for the last, I would say 6 weeks to 2 months, the bulk of every lead that we're getting, good lead, I'm talking about people that want to sell, is coming from open homes. Without a doubt, it's people are a little bit more resistant to engaging realtors at the moment. They want to go do their research. And I mean, all of my top agents right now that are producing really significant results in the listing part of this business, it's coming from doing opens and doing them effectively. And so one of the things that never stopped in my business, and granted, as I got to a point where I had that market share, there were certain things that I didn't have to keep doing because I had signs everywhere. So there's a lot of branding and marketing that was helping. But the one thing that I could absolutely bet my life on was always going to generate great conversations was the door knocking, this 10-10-20 process straight after an open house. So I want to clear up a couple of confusion things. I know there's a lot of people that have been taught to go door knocking before an open home and invite the neighbors. This is where I can be quite opinionated. I think that's the worst thing you can ever do. The last thing you want in an open home is nosy neighbors who are trying to trash the home. And I used to find they were always very, very difficult. But if I listed a really good home that I knew was going to generate a lot of interest from the neighbors, say it was a high value property in the area, maybe it was going to be the highest price sold, or as a potential flip, or it was something that needed a reno where I knew I was going to get a ton of people through, I would go and door knock all the neighbors and say, look, I've got a new home coming on the market, one of your neighbors, it's going to generate a lot of interest. And just for the benefit of you, because I know you're going to want to come and check it out, I'm going to do a neighbors only open. So you can come through, have all your opinions, trash it, do whatever you want to do. But then the public open will be after that. So I just want to give you a bit of free time to do that on your own. No point you coming through when we're actually actively trying to sell the property. Got a lot of good feedback on that. But it was also a live listing appointment for me. All the neighbors coming through, talking about the home. It gave me the ability to talk to them as they were sellers, not as if they were potential buyers. Generate a lot of opportunities. But the door knocking after the open is one of the best you'll ever do. Because if you go after the open, it's really cool because they know that neighbors' homes open. They're seeing the cars. They're seeing everything going on. And so one of the things, we go straight after the open, knock on the door and say, hey, didn't want to bother you, but you would notice I had one of your neighbors' homes open. We had about 20 groups of people through. Be honest with it. If you had nobody, tell them. Had 20 groups of people through, a lot of interest in the area. And if you get questions like, hey, well, why hasn't it sold? Well, the reality of it is every home, the home's not for everybody, but people are coming because of the community, the area. And the reason I'm letting you know that is these people are coming here for the area first, which is showing us that people want to move to this location. So we have a ton of people showing some interest. So if you have any questions, let me know. Doing that straight after the open, absolutely perfect. It was the best one for creating conversations. And if you had an incredible open home, you're pretty excited about it and it's really easy to share with people. So follow that along. So he got to use the 10-10-20 for the neighbor only opens. I would door knock that one, Johnny, because I feel like for me, it was just, I wanted to sort of get in front of you face to face. And because I was actually asking you, to come and check it out. So I quite like that. Hey, if you wanted to do a direct mailer with that, it would work. The one thing I would say that I believe personally I didn't do right was I used to do the neighbors open just before I do the public one. If I had to go back and redo it again, I would have probably done it a day earlier, because I think it was too close. And then what I'd get is they'd start to hang around a little bit. It would sort of create a little bit of, it was just a bit of a challenge. So if I was going to do it again, I think I'd do it a day early. Maybe if I had the open coming up on the Saturday, maybe on the Friday afternoon, I'd do the neighbors open, let them come through, check them out. That is still a really, really good thing to do. A great way to meet the neighbors, great way for them to come check it out. Worked really well if it was a high interest property. Like I said, high dollar value, maybe it was a flip, maybe it was unique, had a really great backyard, whatever it was. So make sure you focus on that. It will make a big difference. But have them ready to go. If you have these things dialed up, ready to go in your business, ready to turn it on, ready to flip the switch and have them go out every single day when you get up, and technically in a normal market, you will have a couple of these things to do every day. If you've got homes that you're listing outside of your area, please feel free to run the process as well. It'll do exactly the same thing. The only difference when you do it out of your farm is you don't get a lot of overlap. So what you'll get that one shot at it. And I found with my farming that this is where the real technical trick comes into it. If I had properties that overlapped, I didn't reduce the amount of things that I sent out. So if I listed a property, on one street and then 5 doors down, I listed another home, you damn right it overlapped. So they might get 2 letters from me in 2 days saying the same thing. It was brilliant because people go, didn't I just get this? No, I got another one coming on the market. And if you've got 2 or 3 of them going, boy, you want to start talking about generating some conversations. It works brilliantly. So it's hypothetically, you've listed one here, another agent's listed one down the street. You're going to overlap them. You're absolutely going to overlap them. I don't miss anybody out. I make sure that I overlap it because it's just showing a lot more engagement and a lot more things that are happening in the market. And I will assure you one thing, you're going to be the only agent sharing information about what's happening, not promising on something that you can do. And if you do it right, it will absolutely produce incredible results. Preset it up. For me, one of my big things is preparation. The more preparation you put into something, the more prepared you get to deliver it, the better results are always going to be. And historically, the reason why most of us don't get the success we need is we wing it. We show up, we hope it's going to work. We don't get a result straight away, so we stop. If this could be one wish from me to you is to get this as a foundational process in your business, and let's start leveling up from that. I tell you what, you're going to get on a lot more people's shopping list. You're going to be considered for a lot more listing opportunities, and it's going to work incredibly well for you. But like I said, get the pre-listing kit done. One of the things that I always like to tell people is don't talk about it as a pre-listing kit. I like to call it a client introduction pack now because I think they should go to everybody. If we're not out there promoting who we are and what makes us different, showing a lot of quality and credentials around what we've built in our business, it's going to be really hard to set that foundation when we go in. So my client intro packs, which is exactly the pre-listing kit we have for you in the program, was just something that I met a great person at an open home, I'd send them one, just really elevated the experience that they had with me. So please make sure you do that. It will be one of the best processes that you put in your business. And this is going to give you a few months to get this dialed in before we start seeing some significant changes in the market or a little bit more of a consistent momentum moving forward. So you do have a bit of a window of opportunity. You've got Christmas, you've got New Year, you've got all the holiday season coming up. It's going to give you multiple reasons to start staying in touch with people. Imagine having the 10, 10, 20 going, and then you have your Thanksgiving stuff going out, your Christmas stuff going out, your New Year stuff going out. You have the ability to really connect with so many people between now and the end of the year, irrespective of what the market's like. This is about filling that pipeline. So when you start 2024, you're going to really start seeing a fundamental difference to how your business is. Without a doubt, this year's been crap. It's been horrible for everybody, a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion, but it's only that way because of the way we're looking at it. I mean, we should have all been taking this opportunity to go, what do I need to change? Your option's not quitting. Your option is, can I change the way I run my business to adapt the way the market is? And this is one of the things that does not get affected by the market conditions. Sure, it'll go through some peaks and hollows, but it's always going to generate curiosity, which is going to get people having conversations with you. And if there's 30 flyers going out in your farm area from other realtors talking about, hey, it's a great time to sell and interest rates are going to go up or the market's going to crash, and you're the only one sharing information about exactly what's happening with neighbors' properties in the area, trust me, you're still going to be considered a lot higher than everybody else. Can't stress it enough. And like I said, it was 60% of my volume, so you can understand why I'm super passionate about it. I do believe the first year was a little bumpy as I started to work out exactly what was generating the best results, but it was trial and error. And one of the great things you guys have is you don't have to go through the trial and error that I did. I mean, it's 20 years in the making to work out exactly what produces the right results. And we've done this in 10 different countries. So it's not like it's area specific and it works in different areas. And I will say that where the difference between great results and poor results is the research, 100% the research. One of my farm areas was an area called Clarkson. It was not a place you'd want to live. That used to have a 25% turnover every year, and most people lived there for 1 or 2 years. It's where you went if you couldn't buy a home anywhere else. So I listed a lot of very average homes in that area, but I had so much turnover. And when the market was really struggling, I always had properties to sell. There was always rentals on the move. There was all that sort of stuff happening. And that brings me to the next one. Make damn sure you have an absentee owner list, because I'm finding this is so effective right now. When maybe you've got a couple of rentals around a property that you've listed, please make sure you get it in the hands of the absentee owners, the landlords, because there's a lot of curiosity around equity and potential, taking the equity out of the homes right now. So please make sure you don't miss them out. This is where you want to make sure you lean on your title company, make sure you get a homeowners list, absentee owners list. If you have all that information in your database, this is going to make this so much easier. It can actually get to a point with the information you can get your hands on today, where you could potentially end up getting majority of people's emails. And I think at the, later in my career, I probably would have had 90% of the people in my farm areas email addresses. So I had the ability to send out more email communication. If you start chipping away at it, this is going to be one of the most powerful things you have in your business. Yeah. So pretty cool stuff. The farming process, like I said, it's your job to make sure that you have it systematically put in play. You have all the things lined up. Maybe just line them all out. You make sure you've got it. Do I have the just on the market one? Do I have the status change letters ready to go? Do I have the 1 week before close? Do I have the week after close? Do I have 2 set up to go out, for the next 60, 90 days after it closes, just doing the same thing? They're all pre-done for you. They've been adjusted slightly so that you can actually use them as a letter or direct mailer. And one of the things we changed with the direct mailer was saying, hey, it might not be something you're interested in doing right now, but if you are thinking about doing something in the future, we'd still love to be part of that conversation. So we did adjust them slightly to make it a little bit further out for you. So it wasn't just specifically talking about what we were doing now. That was a great way of building a database, people reaching out, say, hey, yeah, stay in touch. We might think about doing something in a year or so. And that really does help you leverage it. So please, let's do it. Max number of homes do you recommend with the current market? That's actually a really good call. Really good point, Christina, because ideally for me, it's 500. But in this market right now, actually, let me back up a little bit. My farm area that I worked was an area called Kinross. There was 2,000 homes in my farm area, and I only actually actively marketed to 500, but I was doing this 10, 10, 20 price. So this was actively my marketing. So outside of my marketing flyers and things that I was doing in my farm, the 10, 10, 20 was, going everywhere based on the listings, because it was the thing that I used to always worked. I think anything under 1,000 in this market's okay. When you start having an area that's got 2,000 homes, you're going to be spread way too thin, and it's too hard to keep up with it. And trust me, as you get it right, it's easy to start expanding it. The suggestion that I would probably make, though, Christina, is rather than take one area and go to 2,000 homes, maybe get a couple of very different areas. And if you're finding this process is working and it's something you can fit in, I'd be more inclined to say add another area that a completely different demographic. So maybe you have an area that is a first or second home buy area, and then maybe you have a little bit more expensive area, which is that third and fourth. Maybe it's a high school or a college driven area. So mix it up a little bit, but I would make that decision based on the economic demographics of the areas. This is the main part about this whole process, is it needs to be chosen based on something that can produce results, not just somewhere where you think you'd like to go. I'll give you another great example. Choosing an area that's full of brand new builds is always a bit of a challenge, because the turnover rate is a little bit slower, because people generally, they build a new home and you're going to get a little bit less turnover. I always like to focus on the schools. My area of Kinross only had a middle school, so the turnover rate was a lot higher, because they do the middle school and then they would generally move to, the kids to go to a different high school. So that sort of research for me is huge. Looking for places that are got new developments coming up. They've got a new shopping center being built. That's always going to generate a lot more interest. So those sort of things will be the catalyst to making this work. Farming at a 55 and over neighborhood, I know sometimes that works really, really well, but historically the turnover is a lot slower. You can have some little funky areas that you might want to sort of roll this process out, but make sure you've got your main dominant that never changes. I farmed the same 2 areas, actually the same one area for nearly 12 years and one for about 8. And both of them were just absolutely the fundamentals of my business. One was because it was super high turnover, very difficult clients, because I was dealing with people that were sort of, a lot of landlords that were evicting people and things like that. But hey, it was great turnover, great income. And then I had my Kinross, which was my baby. It was the area that I knew everything about. I knew all the community. And it was just that place that I made sure that I was the one person everybody knew. And as I got to a certain point where I had 40, 50 signs up, it just became so easy, because I was always exposed to the community. Now, if you don't have those signs, does not matter. If you do this process, it'll get you to that point. So please make sure you follow up by the steps. And if you can, please make sure that you're doing the after the open strategy. So even if you do get an open home opportunity with another agent, there's nothing wrong with you go door knocking and just using the guides that we've given you as a door knocking script. Maybe print it on a letterhead and just go and drop it at the doors straight after the open. It's the next step of making an open home one of the most powerful things that you do. If we're seeing it right now, and the majority of our listing leads are coming from opens, do whatever you can to leverage that opportunity. And our job is to really keep you focused on the stuff that's working, not have you doing 900 different things in the hope something's going to produce a result. I'm always going to try and push you back into the stuff that we're seeing the results from. Once you have it as a foundation, then you have the ability to start adding things on top of it. Never, ever get rid of something that's working to add something new and bright and shiny because you think you've done what you need to do with that. I say, when you get something that works in your business, you should have one thought in your head: how do I do more of it? Not what's next. And that's what I think just, kind of upends most realtors. As we do something once, it works, and then we go on to the next thing. If something works in my business, you betcha I'm going to be finding out many, many ways to do more and more of that same thing so I can keep producing those results. I mean, real estate is simple if we stay focused on what works. I think one of the interesting challenges that we have at the moment, and we've got some new cool stuff coming out too, our stackables, which we'll share with you in another session. But one of the interesting things for me is I think we've lost our patience a little bit with this business because there's so much confusion going on there at the moment with what works and who do we listen to and all that sort of stuff. And something I've always sort of prided myself on, and I really want everybody to understand this, is everything you've ever heard works. It just doesn't work for everybody. The whole goal of this business is, one, to find out exactly what you're comfortable with, what you're passionate about, and what works for you. Because I didn't have any fear of door knocking, but if somebody has a fear of door knocking, I would suggest it's not the right thing for you to do because you're going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to, feel authentic. And if you feel more comfortable doing the mailers, do it. But you need to find something that works for you. And unfortunately, in this situation, just not doing it is the right answer because that's going to have immediate impact on your income and your business. And this is one of many things, but this is something that I would swear, if you put it in, it'll be the one thing that you come back to me later and say, oh, I'm so glad you made me do that, because it'll be the elevation. And you get a couple of listings in a farm area, and then all of a sudden you can start adding the other stuff to it. Some of the great marketing things that we have for you when you've got listings, these are always going to work better. And if you start doing this now, and we do see some negative rollout from what's happened from the lawsuit, it is going to give you a place to be comfortable because this will have no effect on your listings. If you're listing the property, you're always going to get paid. If you're working with a buyer, that's where it's going to get a little funky. The other reason why I want to stress this, and this is me just talking to you guys because you're our people, you're in our community, is when this happened in Australia many, many years ago, the biggest thing that happened was that the double ending deals went through the roof because the buyers now know that they can go directly to the listing agent to get a better deal because of what's happening with that commission. So if you've got the listing, you're going to have the ability to deal directly with the buyers because the whole dual agency thing is going to be a bit of a myth as we move forward because that was an NAR thing. There's no legal problems behind it. You may want to check with your brokers because I know some brokers have that. That will change because obviously that's forcing people onto the buy side. But if you've got listings, you've got control. And for me, this is just my simple brain and the way it works. When I got to this business, I thought, you know what? I can put a buyer in my car and go and show them 10 homes and that takes me all day. Or if I actually have the listing, they've got to come to me and I can stand there for an hour. It makes way better sense just to have the listings. Obviously, I didn't know at that point what it was going to take to do it, but it did make a huge difference. And this process has been developed around the fact that I could see what I was getting by having better relationships with people. When I had better relationships with people, I got more listing opportunities. And this process will give you way better relationships with the people in your community because you're doing something against the grain of what everybody else is doing. You've got a fundamental process. Just imagine connecting with the neighbors 6, 7, 8 times during the listing process. You're going to build a relationship with them, or they're going to tell you to go away one way or the other. But I don't have a problem with that. If somebody says, look, hey, never contact me again, it's just somebody off my list. But the ones that say, great, thank you for the information, I know they're always going to consider me when they're thinking about doing something. So like I said, farming, one of the coolest things that's about there, and it's been through a little bit of a funky zone over the last few years, just with the heat of the market. But the reason we wanted to bring this to you today is because over the next 12 months, you're going to see some significant changes with what's happening in the area. And we want to make sure you understand what our goal is to get you listings in your inventory. So that's going to protect your income and make sure your business is going to be stable. And so that's where our heart is. And that's where we're in the right place. It's the thing that got me through the toughest markets I've ever been through. And when the market absolutely tanked and things weren't selling, it still kept me going because I had a ton of listings. My brand was out there and I was always marketing. But this comes with a few conditions. Get your client intro packs, your pre-listing kits done. Do the research process. Map out this entire system. Add this process to your listing checklist. It should be the first thing you do when you list a property. First thing you do when you see a home come on your community. Maybe you go and talk to some of the agents in your office about doing some open houses around properties that they've got. Doing an open for them and then doing the after the open door knocking. If you get out and try it, you're going to start to see where you're at your best and where you get the best results. So trust me on this one. It will absolutely do some great stuff for you. So any questions that we've got? Should we do postcards or just letters? Now, Good question. Please do not do postcards. Absolutely no way, because this is a speed-driven thing. And the sooner we get in front of people saying, hey, I've just listed one of your properties, one of your neighbor's properties, you don't have the time to go and get a pre-printed flyer to do it. So you're kind of exposing yourself as not doing the right thing. I've tried both. I went the whole pre-printed route where I had thousands and thousands of postcards done, didn't do anywhere near as good as the direct mailers did. And just so you know, that's an expense I don't want you guys doing right now. It is way cheaper to do a direct mail than it is to go and do the postcards and have them pre-printed. This is one of those things where I don't want you to find an easy way out. That's a cop-out in my mind, just doing a direct mailer, because it's not addressed to the homeowner. It's just something that you're flying out there. Do a direct mail, a letter, no branding on it. You will absolutely see the results. Now, I've gone through all that. I've tested them all, and we've done this in so many different countries and with so many different realtors. It always comes back to the same thing. The best results come from the direct mailers. Hey, in certain areas, if you door knock it, great. The other thing to remember too is if you're in a predominantly second, third home buyer area where most people are still working, door knocking is going to have to be done at a bit of an odd time of the day, because if you're doing that in the middle of the day, nobody's going to be home. So, I mean, the strike rate is going to be pretty low. Our job is to get you in the position of power, which is what's going to work the best for you. And hey, if you still love door knocking, you might want to consider doing it a little earlier or a little later in the afternoon. And certain places of the country, certain places in the country that are just not feasible. I mean, if you're on the East Coast and it's snowing, I mean, let's go be honest, you're not going to go door knocking, so you're going to have to be forced into doing this. If you're in Arizona in the middle of summer, I know Christina's on here and she door knocks in 120-degree heat, but I know that's not for everybody. You have to find the thing that you feel good doing. I used to actually, when I was selling in Perth, Western Australia, middle of the summer, it's also at 120 degrees. So I used to go door knocking in a full suit and a tie because I was going for the sympathy vote. I was hoping people were going to call me and give me a cold beer because it was so hot outside. And sometimes it worked. But I always live by one theory: is never, ever a good time to lower my standards. If I set something in my business, it's the minimum standard that I set. There should never, ever be a reason why I would lower those standards. You know where you work, you know your area, you know your restrictions, you know the things you can and can't do. Build your business around it. And then that way you can be super consistent with the things that you do. Consistency is going to pay dividends no matter what you do. We've seen so many people do a really good thing once and get no results. And we've seen a lot of people do average things consistently their entire career and always produce results from it. Consistency keeps people aware of what you're doing, and it'll keep you on the shopping list. Okay. Another question. Can you repeat what number of houses is the sweet spot for a farm? 500. It is in the research project. I mean, sweet spot 500, but I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. I mean, the only thing I would say is don't get too aggressive with 2,000-3,000 homes. That's a no-go. You just don't have the ability to do it. Anything sort of under 1,000 in this market's right. But if you're actually worried about the number, when you do the research project, you're actually going to work it out. Because one of the things that I also do in the research project is I get a map and I actually look at where the bulk of homes sell. And so that's where I usually choose my 500 homes. So if you've got an area that's got 2,000 homes in it, if you actually do the research on the last 12 months of sales, or the last, go back to 2019 and see what those 12 months of sales were, look at the map. You might see a hot pocket where there's a higher turnover in a certain area, maybe because it's right by the school, or maybe it's by a park, maybe there's just a reason why there's a higher turnover. And that's ironically what I did. Is my farm area was a big square. And so I just picked the front part of it because there was a main road that went right past it. So there just seemed to be a higher turnover there. Go find the hot spots. It is what we can. Sometimes you can move those around, but once you start owning the area, it gets really, really easy. Also understand my 50% market share was of the entire 2,000 homes. It wasn't just of the 500 that I was working. It just gave me the base to do that thing consistently every day. Makes a big difference. How am I finding all the research? Your title person. Title, they have this information. I mean, the great thing about title companies now, if you've got a great title partner that you're working with, they can get you this information. I mean, back in my day, you didn't get any email addresses or anything like that. Basically, you got the name and, that's about it. Now you have ability to get email addresses, phone numbers. Be careful of the do not call stuff. And this isn't something that I'd say that I would prefer you to email. Like I say, I think the best method of this is the direct mailing. It's the lowest cost thing that we can do at the moment, but still has a little bit associated with it. Even if you don't want to do that, there's nothing wrong with putting this at the front door. I know a lot of people have an excuse, I can't do that because, you're not allowed to do that. Well, you absolutely are. It's just an excuse. I'm never, ever going to let somebody tell me what I can't do to earn money until they actually tell me I can't. And like I said, we've been doing this for years. We've had a few people that have had a problem with it, but we also discovered that they're all realtors that had a problem with it. There is no issues with what we're doing in the form of solicitation or anything like that. So get out and try it and you'll watch what happens. So choose your areas wisely. Direct mail, just post office. I mean, I used to have a printing machine in my office. I'd print all the letters, mail merge it, run the addresses on it. I had a little folding machine that I'd chuck them all in, and then I'd just take them down the post office and send it. I mean, that was old school. Like I said, I think I want to be really open about this as well. Be conscious of your costs. Like I know there's an element of speed and efficiency and spending some money to get something done quicker, but I do need everybody to be really conscious of their expenditures at the moment. And spending worthless money on something that you could actually do yourself, I don't think is smart at the moment, because there isn't really an understanding or a time frame of when we're going to start seeing a reprieve in this market. And I'm just saying, save your money. That's the business guy in me coming out. We should be working off a budget. We should know what our minimum monthly income needs to be. We should be tracking what we're spending every single month. We should know what that looks like, because you don't want to get to a point where you've started something that you can't physically afford to keep doing. Keep your costs as low as you can right now. You'll have the ability to start adding some stuff to it as the business starts to grow with you. But you should first look at what's going to be, first of all, what's the most effective, what's the cost involved with doing it, and then just sort of match those two up. I'll be honest with you, I always try to find an easier and better way to do things, and nothing ever works better than the manual labor. Nothing works better than getting out in front of people or sending an old school letter to people. And interesting, that was one of the benefits that we had through COVID, is a lot more people were opening their posts. They all thought it was a payout check from somebody. So if you make it look like a window face envelope, make it look like a check, go figure, people will open it. We just want to get eyes on it. That's all we need, is people to see what we're doing. We don't want it screwed up and thrown in the trash. Generally is what happens to most postcards and most flyers. I don't think there's anybody on this call right now that can say they know exactly what was in their post box a week ago. So don't ever expect any of your consumers to remember the flyers that you sent out a month ago. If you do this consistently, watch what happens. You start to get a lot of engagement and curiosity starts rising. People start leaning on you to ask questions, because we're not using cheesy realtor scripts. We're just using informative information that we're sharing with our neighbors. So Tyler's got here, to circle back on what we were asking earlier, is there a company that uses robots to write letters? There's some of them out there that do it, but I mean, I would pre-print these, Tyler, honestly, because I mean, the letters don't really change. You're not putting the address in there. And so I had all of those different status letters pre-printed. I had boxes of them in my office, and all I had to do was run them through the printer in the mail merge, which was just putting the names and address on it. So technically, I mean, you could go get those all bulk printed at, Kinko's or at Staples and have them sitting in boxes in your office. At least that way you're going to send them out. That I found worked better for me, and it was a lower cost. So it was super easy just to pick up 40, jam them in the printer, run them through, put the mail merge on it, fold them, put them in the envelopes and send them out. It was a really quick, easy process to do. You come up with some pretty creative ways to do that. I mean, I had a little envelope packer and a letter folding machine, and away I went. It's old school, but I tell you what, it works. So, hey, yes.
I think he's asking too, so they have these robots now that make it look hand printed, but it would be more expensive. Is it worth it to make it look hand printed, or is that cost not worth it?
The only thing I'll say, I mean, I think it is, but I mean, we're doing a professional thing here, and generally most professional letters come in a letter form, which is, printed, look like it's being typed out. Here's where I would say, if you were doing, and this is where I'm probably going to throw a little curveball at you, Tyler, because I kind of like where you're going with it. If you're doing some past client engagement stuff, so maybe you're doing some updates to past clients, things like that, this I actually don't mind. I think it's a really good idea. I wouldn't suggest you do it with this process though, because speed's the big thing. And if you really want to do yourself a favor, go watch a YouTube video on how slow those things are. It might take you a little bit of time to get them all done. I actually think that's a really good idea if you're going to do that with some, old client sphere engagement stuff, doing the old school handwritten letter. I think that's a great idea for that, more personal. And so I think in that framework, if it's got a personal directive behind it, when you're sending it out, maybe you're, sending something out to a past client, congratulating them on something or doing something a little different, be a very good thing to do. Actually, one of the things I used to do, which was a handwritten letter, was at the end of every year, I used to do a handwritten thank you letter to every one of my clients for that last 12 months. And it was nothing more than to say, hey, look, I've had a great year in the business. Things have been really, really good, but I would not have done anything that I've done this year without great people like you. And I just wanted to personally thank you for the support that you've given me. That was a handwritten letter. And I used to sit down and hand write them. I didn't have a funky machine like that. That would be really good, because it just really gives it a personal note. Looks like you've sat down and done it. I have looked at one of those machines before, but once you see how long it is literally as slow as somebody writing it. And I think you do have to program your own handwriting and things like that into it. But boy, I tell you what, that's definitely going to a next step. Wouldn't hurt you. So Yeah, definitely. So no property addresses in the letters. I prefer not to, because I mean, it's interesting whenever I've done this, and I think this is a really good tip when it comes to marketing. Like, we send out a lot of communication, but we tell them everything we think they want to know. We need people to call us. So if you share all the information, what's the point in them calling you? You've told them everything. So I'd always leave the address off. I'd always leave prices off. I'd always want to make sure that there was a call to action. And the most common phone call you get from people in the first one, who's listed their house? Who's selling? That's the most common one. When the status changed, what did they drop the price to? Why won't they accept an offer? So it's the curiosity thing. So if I don't share that information, they're going to ask me. So, and there's a reason why I do that. Now, a lot of people want to over information everybody, like give them everything they want to know, but all you're doing is giving them a reason never to talk to you because you're sharing too much information. Over serving, that's called. And basically what you're doing is probably helping their cousin or their sister that's going to sell the property for them by sharing the information they don't know. I think keep it close to your chest. Definitely on my properties, I would not share any information. And I think I kind of did that more from a respect standpoint from my clients. I don't think my clients would want me to share that. Honestly, I never asked them, but I know I wouldn't want that to be shared. So I'm only sharing the information about the interest and the activity that we're having on the property. If they want to ask me about it, I'll give you a perfect example. If it goes into escrow and they call me and say, hey, like, how much did it sell for? I would simply say to them this, look, it's in escrow at the moment. We've still got some contingencies on the offer we need to clear, and I can't actually share that a number with you. But the minute it goes unconditional, I'll call you and let you know what it is. The minute it gets publicized, I'll let you know. So all I'm doing is plugging in my next phone call. Most people go, yeah, that's great. Let me know what it sells for. That triggers something in my head going, if you want to know what it sells for, there's a curiosity thing going on in your head. So straight away, that person's going a lot higher up in my database because there's a future potential opportunity there. I mean, we're all nosy, but when you really want to know what it's sold for, you want to dig in. If you're not in a hurry, you'll wait till the information comes out on Zillow. If you're in a hurry, you're going to start asking the realtor what's happening. So, yeah, that makes getting the letters out a lot faster, Christine. Absolutely, yeah. But see, this is where the interesting part comes. In the program, this stuff is all there. Like it shows you there's no address, and there's something you can put the address if you wanted to. But personal opinion, I say no. Because I want the phone to ring. And I get people say, well, I want to put all the information. I want to put the address. And honestly, all you're doing is stopping the phone from ringing by sharing that information. So speed and efficiency, leave the address off. It gave me the ability to mass produce it and then just put as long as you've got the homeowner's name on it, it will absolutely work. If you put dear homeowner, expect to get the same results. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't open that stuff. It gets ripped up, goes straight in the trash because I know it's not for me personally. It's generally a marketing thing. So get personal with it. Put the names and addresses on it. Put a little bit of extra energy into it, and you'll find real quickly how much this changes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot faster, Christina. A lot faster. Yeah. And obviously, everything we're looking at doing is how do we make it work quicker? Because, I mean, the speed of response and the speed of putting things out there is always the real key to understanding the conversion ratio. And I think you look at everything that we're teaching you guys with communication plans and all that sort of stuff, the speed of response is the kicker to actually what actually happens with the result. I mean, it's like one of my absolute non-negotiables. We talked about this so many times, same day follow-up every single time. My conversion ratio is going to triple if I follow you up on the same day. Open houses, same day follow-up, absolutely you're going to remember me when I need to get that information from you. Same day follow-up. And if you can sort of run that mental space through this process, the quicker you get it out, absolutely the way better the results are. If you're sending these things out a week after it's happened, you're sharing things they already know. So you're not going to get the engagement. If you can get this right, so the information goes out before it becomes public or on the same day, you're the one that's going to get the conversation and you're the one that's likely going to get the opportunity to do the business. So 100% yes. Yep. Yeah. I gotta be honest, I'm loving the questions you guys are throwing out. It's the detail that makes this work. And where we have seen some issues, like I say, it's not following it in detail. It's not having a process. It's doing it whimsically every day when something pops up. This thing needs to be so dialed in that it becomes one of the absolute non-negotiables you do in your morning 90. Get that part right? Yeah. We're going to be doing some good things next year with this because listings are going to be the key. We've always been a listing company. We've always been focused on getting the listings because it's the survivability of being a realtor. It's the consistency. It's what gives you the ability to keep growing. We are looking at a lot of different strategies as well on the buying side, ways to protect you, ways to help you get through that, navigate through it. But I'm not going to wait to see what happens. I'm going to make sure that every single one of you has every single tool that you need so that when we do see some changes in the market, you're prepared for it. You're aware of how it's going to impact your business and it's not going to affect your income. I think the hardest thing we've got right now is knowing what to pinpoint our focuses on. If you're frustrated or if you've got a lot of noise, a lot of confusion going on right now, dive into the program and find something that's going to keep you focused. Best thing you can do when you're confused, focused, a little bit uncomfortable what's going on, pinpoint on something you believe. Dive into something that you know that's going to work. This would be the suggestion where I'd have you go. So maybe you're a bit newer in the business and you're kind of struggling to know what the next step's going to be. This is it. Maybe you're a little bit more mature in the business. You've been doing it a long time and kind of sort of wondering what your next move is. Let's go back and do this right. I tried to get away from it a few times. I just thought I was getting a little too good for it. That's where I kind of got my ego checked really, really quickly. If you keep consistent with it, it'll always work. If you get inconsistent with it, it'll never produce a result because you get forgotten really, really quickly. And that is where the terms and conditions comes in on this. It's one of those programs that when you start it, you've got to keep doing it. Because if you stop, you're literally going to have to start the whole thing all over again. It takes the human brain about 30 days to forget everything that they've ever seen. That memory starts to disappear pretty quickly. So if you keep triggering along on this thing, set it up so that you can do it on a daily basis. It is absolutely going to get you more listing opportunities, which is exactly what we need to have to start 2024. Because if everybody on this call right now knew they had 3 or 4 listings coming on in January, you'd sleep really well at night. You'd have a bloody good Christmas, and 2024 would start really, really well. So maybe that's what the challenge should be. Maybe we should find 3 or 4 people that are curious and interested in potentially selling their home in January or February next year, and let's start elevating from there, because that will get the year started right. Make sense? Great. Are there any negatives to sending out mailers and starting the farm during? No, none at all. None at all, Taylor. There is no bad time to do it, because remember, I think the only negativity we have at the moment is if we're going out regurgitating the same crap that every other realtor is doing. If you're going out there talking about interest rates, affordability, talking about that sort of stuff, that's where the problem is. Actually, Taylor, you know what? I'm going to give you a really good one to send. There's a letter that Katie's created and put into the program for you. And this one was about, it was something we've done for the last year, and it was to really change the script a little bit. And when I say change the script, change the dynamic of the conversation. And so one of the things that we sent out during this year was, hey, it was a very simple letter. We were using this with our past client databases, and it has worked with old leads as well. And the letter was very simple. It was something to the words of the effect that we're not going to be like every other realtor, because we also understand today might not be the right time for everybody to sell. But as you're enjoying your Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year, I'm adding this piece into it because this isn't in it because it wasn't done at this time of the year. But I would add this, but as you're enjoying the holiday season, if there's any consideration of you doing anything in the future, it would be a really great time to start planning for it as we're starting to see the changes happen in the market. And all I would say is, look, I want to remove the pressure of thinking you can only talk to somebody in the business when you're thinking of selling. The smartest thing we can do for people right now is give them the ability to use us as a resource to get the information they need. So if that does ever become something they want to do, at least they're more educated around what their options are. And then I'd always finish it. I don't expect to get your business, but I'd love to be considered for the opportunity. I just want to make sure that I'm a resource to you, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you. Another great thing that you could all do right now, this time of the year, there is so many more questions. Farming, this is where you could use this one. Farming at the moment, you could use it is, hey, there's more questions around mortgages at the moment, finance. We've got an affordability issue at the moment, not a real estate problem. I mean, low inventory, people still getting high prices. It's the affordability that's the issue. Maybe this would be a great time to rethink your lending partners. Do you have a lender that you could use as part of your communication? One of the best things I ever did was I'd reach out to all my past clients and say, look, now that you're in my network, it does give you some benefits. You now have access to somebody that's really important in my business, and it's the person that handles all the finance part of it. And one of the things that I want to do is give you access to them so that if something comes up where you have questions and you want an honest opinion, feel free to call him anytime. I promise you, he will not bother you about doing loans. We work very, very close together, and I trust him with my own business. And all of a sudden, he would start getting a ton of phone calls from people. And the thing that I always found, they're a lot more honest with a lender than they are with us, because that's the money part. And so I'd start to find out really quickly who was planning on doing something from the conversations they were having with him. One of the things that I think we've always sort of learned is nobody ever gets successful on their own. I've had a lot of great people around me to grow my businesses, grow my companies, grow my sales team. There's certain elements that we can do very, very well, but sometimes we need some assistance. Sometimes we need to have significant partners that help us grow, things that challenge the way that we think, sometimes that sort of redirect us when things aren't feeling right. And this is a big part of it. So this time of the year, I would love to see you guys open up your network of who you've got access to that you could share with your database of people when they're sitting at home. Questions about the finance world. Look, I got somebody I trust. You can reach out to them. you need a handyman, or you need someone to help you, go ahead and do it. This is always one of the things that I made available at this time of the year, was ability to my services. My handyman, my painters, my gardeners, anybody that I had dialed in as a vendor in my business, this is when I made them available to people. There's always somebody doing something. And so I became well more of a resource at this time of year than I did a realtor, because I found that's when I got more engagement. Yeah, makes a big difference. Jolly, we'll send that out, Jolly. We'll send a link to it. It's in there. There's a ton of stuff. You can actually just search it. There's a search feature there where you can go in and search it. I will stress one thing though, and I think this is something, whenever we roll out something, and I won't say it's a negative, I say it's an absolute positive, because one of the things that we have is there's so much information in the Sell Well program. And I know we've updated, there's a lot of new stuff in there right now. Do yourself a favor and spend some time just knowing what you have access to. It's not just these calls, all the coaching, all the training, all the documents, all the marketing materials that are available to you in this program is going to give you every single thing you need to run your business and run your business well, being very cost effective doing it. So the best thing I could ever tell you to do is know what you have. The one thing I don't ever want to see is somebody coming back to me a week later going, man, I wish I knew that a week ago. There is no drip feeding you the information. Every single thing that we create is in the program for you to use. So please go through it. Go through all the training documents. Know what you have access to, because one of those is absolutely going to get you a paycheck. And based on the membership, you close one deal a year. We're the best free offering you've ever had because of something you've used. And this is why we do it, is we want to be that resource. So you want to make sure that you're never sitting there thinking, what's my next move? What's the next thing I should do? We're the ones that are going to keep you going. We're the ones that are going to keep you focused on the things that are going to work without you going down a rabbit hole that's not going to help you. It doesn't work unless you know what you have available to you. So please spend some time, go through it, have a look at everything, know what you have available, know what all the marketing content is, know all the different communication plans that are in there, know exactly what you've got, and you'll be ready to handle anything that comes your way, anytime in the future with your business. It'll be posted under the farming section. I'm assuming that's where we'll find the recordings. If you scroll right to the bottom, you'll see them all in there. That's a simple navigation thing. Please make sure you know what you've got. I can't stress that enough. And I can say it with this in all honesty, the best feedback we ever get about our program is when somebody goes through it once and they go through it a second time, they say it's like watching a movie. When you watch it the second time, you just work out a whole lot of stuff you didn't know. We don't digest information at 100%. So when you go through it once, the best advice, go back through it again, because there's a lot of aha moments. Man, I should have used that, or I should have used this. We're updating things all the time. I mean, Justine and creating so much content, stuff that we're putting together that's relative in the market now. It should be a fundamental part of your morning 90, 10 to 15 minutes. Everything is short and simple, so you can go focus on one thing, do it, and move on to the next. If you chip away at this every day between now and the end of the year, trust me, come 2024, you're going to be in the best spot ever, because you're going to be super confident about your business. You're going to know what's non-negotiable. You know what's going to work, and you're going to know what your action steps are every single day when you get up to produce results to help you grow. Get that right? And that was the thing that kept me going. The fact that I never had any days where I would wake up and go, what am I doing today? And I wanted to avoid that at all costs. The day I woke up and thought, what am I doing, is the day that I'd lost control of my business. You guys run a business. There's not a single person here that would work for anybody that didn't know what was happening in their business, because that's a real danger zone for you and your income. You run your business. You're the CEO of your own company. You need to make damn sure you know what's going on. We are going to be rolling out some new business planning strategies. There's budgeting models in there for you. These things are essential in running a business. If you're feeling frustrated, a little uneasy about where you're at, this is where you need to go. If we can get that cleared up, you move into 2024 with some confidence, a great farming strategy, everything you need dialed in with your communication. Yeah, you're going to be ready for whatever happens. And being ready is 99% of the result. If you're not ready, you're not going to be present for the opportunity. Perfect. Any more questions? Man, it's coming in hot and fast today. Hey, one of the things I would say, I saw the holiday question in there. Now's the time you should actually start be planning for it. Like, don't wait to 2 days before Thanksgiving. One of the things I always like to do is on my holiday stuff, I like to send a little bit early. So I don't like them to get it on Thanksgiving or Christmas. I like to make sure I get a little bit of time on my own. Maybe a little bit of something after Thanksgiving or Christmas. Go and have a look at the unpredictable communication. There's lots of different ways you can communicate with people at this time of the year. The one thing I would say though is don't forget that holidays are generally a family-driven thing. So you showing up on the holiday is probably not going to have the right impact. The best way I can probably explain it is my birthday thing with my clients. I used to call all of my clients a week before their birthday. So I got a week on my own. I mean, nobody's going to remember me if I'm one of 50 phone calls they get on their birthday, but they sure as hell will remember me if I call them a week before and let them know that I know when their birthday is. That circumnavigates the whole social media thing of me being told. It just means I've actually had to put a bit of energy in. Always ask yourself that question: is there something I could do to make this more effective or better? Or am I just doing the average and the expected of what they think they're going to get? Your job is to step outside the box and do something that separates you from your competition. And that means you're going to have to take another step. You're going to have to do something a little different. You have to do something that makes you a little uncomfortable. But I assure you, the uncomfortable part you have of doing something different is going to be no more, it's going to be a lot more comfortable than if you get to 2024 and you're not prepared for what this market throws at you. And we've got a lot of realtors doing incredible business right now. And I'll tell you, it's hard. It's challenging. You know, we're working our way through some stuff, but we're still producing great results and great income. And that's just a part of the market. It's not always going to be easy. You know, we've just had a very long window where it's been pretty easy to make money. I still think it's going to be a lot more money to be made over the coming years. You're just going to have to get this stuff right now. So when that happens, like I said, you're going to be so far ahead of your competition, it won't matter. And honestly, it doesn't matter where you go with it. You decide to move, you decide to do something different. This is still going to be effective. It's still going to be working because it's going to be connected to you. So please take it to heart. Please go back and watch it. Go through the process. Do not miss a step. And there's nothing good about being lazy, guys. Just don't want to do that one. Remember the 2 weekly increments. If you're not sending it every 2 weeks, you're missing something. That's the most critical thing. After 2 weeks, people start to forget. Those are the most critical parts of this process: is consistency and timing, making sure they're going out in the framework and the order they need to. Perfect. Any final questions? Okay, just so you know, in the program as well, you guys know you can contact us anytime you like. There's an Ask Aaron section. There's a, communicate with Katie and Justine as well. I actually encourage you to use that as well, because sometimes a simple question can help you take a major step forward. There is no dumb question in my mind. I think the only dumb question you've ever got is the one you don't ask. So you might not think it's that sensible, but if I can help you solve a problem and get you on the right track really, really quickly, do not hesitate to reach out. We also have the chat room, so you can communicate with other agents as well that are through our network. You'll learn a lot of things from what some of our other successful agents are doing as well. Take advantage of the community as much as you can. And I'll tell you what, it'll give you a safe place to go to do things that we know are going to work any single day. So perfect. Katie, did you see that from Whitney?
Yes, I'm looking now. I'll email it out.
Okay, perfect. Well, fantastic. I appreciate you all showing up on a Thursday morning. And we thank Katie for moving it so that we didn't get everybody tied up with the daylight savings that's about to happen next week. That's the reason we changed the day with it. We're just to sort of get around that. But obviously for us, next week, the daylight saving kicks in. So there might be some subtle time changes. We'll try to avoid it as much as we can. But please make sure you're reading the communications that we send out. We're always sending out emails, notifications, things like that, letting you know what's going on. Check the dates, check the times, make sure you put it in your calendar. The things that we're going to be bringing to the table are going to really help you with your business. We have some smaller little things that we're going to start throwing at you guys through the next couple of months, some stackables. You'll get to know more about those as we go. Because I still think this in the bottom of my heart, like, we can give you every single tip and technique to run a great business. But if we can't manage what's going on in here, and we can't get ourselves through tough days and understand how to deal with pressure and understand time management, understand frustration, that's the engine that drives everything. And so there's a lot of stuff that we do is going to be helping you control what's going on upstairs. And you all know that was the biggest thing in my business. The day I worked out how to manage my own crap was the day everything changed for me, because everything around us is an excuse. Everything internal is things we can control. And if we can get you managing those right, doing all these things, yeah, we're going to have a really good year next year. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you all. This is what I love. When you guys get engaged, you start asking questions, this is where things really start to happen. You're going to learn really, really quickly. Working with me is the more you communicate, the more you're going to get. So please make sure you reach out. You will never offend us. You'll never bother us. Like I said, there's no dumb question. If you guys are taking the time to invest in what we're doing, we're going to invest every single thing we've got in you. Do the same thing. Take advantage of everything we're offering. We're always going to make sure we've got your back. So perfect. Well, I appreciate you all. You all go have a phenomenal week. Friday, that's all that's left of it. Have a great weekend, and we will be seeing you next week. We've got a couple of things we're going to be dropping to you next week as well. So remember, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. We're always here to help you. Perfect. One last thing, if you're not in the program and you are here having a bit of a look, we do still have a very short time left on the free trial. If you're interested in anything we've just talked about, make sure you get in there, take advantage of the free trial. You can go at it, have a go at it. And if there's value in this for you, we'd love to have you part of our community. So please take advantage of it. That free trial will be disappearing pretty quickly. So please jump in there and take advantage of it while it's still available. Perfect. Thank you, everybody.